back to the That's My Dad podcast. I have Dan Woodcock with us here today.
Thank you.
Dan is, we were just joking, I guess I can say this, I call him the Asian Energizer Bunny.
Yeah. You're the only one I've ever heard call me that, but I like it. So I'm going to roll with that.
Dan's an old friend of mine and has a great story, and I don't know your whole story, Dan, but you know kind of what we're looking at doing here with the podcast. So let's just kind of roll into this fatherhood thing. You're a pastor, first of all, and you're a dad, and you're a husband, most importantly, right? So let's go back and, for the viewers and listeners, just kind of tell me a little bit about your upbringing.
Okay. So this might be therapeutic. So I grew up in the military. My dad was in the Army for 22 years. And my middle school year, 7th grade, we were living in Arizona. We just moved there. My dad felt like God was calling him to be a pastor. So he became a pastor my middle school year, 7th grade, and he was still in the Army. So it was like one of those, like, you know, we were a church plant out in like a tiny town in Arizona, you know, going out, doing the whole door knocking, 3 services every week, you know. So it was a very different upbringing for me, just something I wasn't expecting, you know, just being what I felt like was a normal, just Army brat. And then it was like, oh, now my dad's a pastor. I feel like I got to be different.
So up until that time, y'all had just kind of been moving around and
yeah, we moved a lot. You know, we would go. I mean, you know, the longest we'd stay anywhere would be 2 years.
Yeah.
So you know, every time it was like you settle down, you get into a spot. It was like you made friends. It was like it was time to leave again. So that was really tough. Like learning. I feel like now, like I can adapt to any culture. Yeah. You know, like I live in Alabama, right? The only thing Southern about me is Korean. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like. There's nothing else like in that, so I feel like that has helped me, but moving a lot was difficult, you know, and so when he stepped into that role, it was totally different because we were a part of church. I remember living in Colorado, and it was like he got real serious about his faith. We got involved in this church, and he started like driving the bus on Sunday mornings, picking kids up. He like was different. We moved to Korea. We lived there for a couple of years. He got involved in the church, and so when he took this step, I went from just we go to church to I do everything in the church. Yeah. That was a big change.
So being a preacher's kid is interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
So how did it change for you? What changed the most? And how old were you, 7 or 8 years old?
I was like 13.
Yeah, 13. Okay.
Yeah.
So what kind of relationship did you and your dad have? And did it change any when he became a pastor?
I feel like, so my dad now and my dad then are 2 different guys. Really? I remember like living in Colorado, and we would play basketball. You know, we'd have like time together, just shooting hoops out back, you know?
Yeah.
And then like when he stepped into this role, pastoring's full time. Like there is no, like there are guys that do it like part-time, bivocational, but pastoring is full time.
Right.
And so he's pastoring this tiny church at its peak, you know, 40 something people, but he's still a full-time like soldier. He's in the military, you know? And so there's so much that goes into it. He comes home and it's like just church stuff. So I felt like for me, it was like I felt a pressure, whether it was said or unsaid, that I don't want to make my dad look bad. But like, man, I grew to have a distaste for church because I was, like I said, you're there Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. I had to go door knocking. You know, like at just random towns, like we're knocking on like trailers, you know, like, hey, and like, and the worst was like when like my dad would make me go, you know what I'm saying? Like you never pray harder than when you walk up a door and like, I hope they're not home, you know? So like, you're just like, if no one shows up, this is a great day. And I think that was like just something that like he had to learn. He's changed a lot. And so it caused a lot of tension. There was times where there was just a lot of tension.
So you're about 13, and then you start to have some tension. Did that develop? Did that get worse as the teenage years went, or how did that unfold?
I was still in public school too, right? So just that pressure to fit in, I think, eats into that. So I think I came the stereotypical pastor's kid, where it's like I'm one way at church. People think I'm a really good kid, and I was, for the most part, I was a good kid. I didn't do crazy things.
Yeah.
I didn't get into drugs or anything like that. But at school, when I was around my friends, my peers, I was totally different. And so it was almost like I learned how to mask who I was.
Wow.
And when I was in this, so the older I got in my teenage years and in high school, I started playing football, and it's totally like a totally different just group of people. The friends that I had, the music I listened to, was not like hymns and piano. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I listened to like a lot of hip hop and rap, and which is obviously countercultural to the world I was in.
You're a rapping preacher's kid.
Well, like just privately, right? Like, so it's like I start thinking through things. I still had this relationship, but I wanted to be this other person. But who I was at church was not this person. It was this tug. And so even like my own salvation, I would pray. Like, I didn't want to go to hell. I can't tell you how many times I prayed for God to save me. But I didn't want the relationship. I wanted to live my life and want to do what I want. So, I think, like I said, that struggle got older, and I think the rebellion and wanting to do my own thing, but living under, my father's roof and, him being military and stern and strict, that caused for a lot of, like I said, a lot of tension.
A lot of friction between you and your dad.
Sure.
Did you resent him?
I think there were times I probably did. I remember, like Wednesday, like I said, like church was tiny, small church. Like, so on Wednesday nights, we maybe had 12 people would show up maybe, right?
Yeah.
So in Arizona, this is going to sound funny, but in Arizona, like they have like guys volleyball, all right? So I was on the volleyball team. It is me and it's all my friends. But we only had two games that happened to land on a Wednesday night. I already knew, like, this is going to be a lot of tension. So of the two, he did let me go to one, but then he regretted it, and so I didn't get to go to the other one. So it was things like that I felt like, is missing this one Wednesday night, is this a big deal? And I know, like, his thought was, like, nothing comes before God. I get that, right? But this was like, I only get this once, and he didn't see it like that. And so I think that's where the tension came in,
Yeah. So then you moved on to college.
Yeah. So, I mean, even that's a crazy story, because I ended up going to a Bible college in Springfield, Missouri. But I was already getting scholarships for academics for Arizona State University, and I thought that's what I was going to do. But I went on a mission trip in Mexico, and it was there I felt like God was calling me into the ministry, right? So at this point, I really didn't want anything to do with church. I was done. Like, I didn't want this life. And but it was there I felt like God was calling me to go into the ministry. And so one of my best friends, the one that actually sent my dad to plant the church, his dad was a pastor as well. And his dad went to this Bible college in Springfield. So we go and checked it out. And I was like, I remember like walking onto this campus for the first time, and I saw a dude playing a guitar. And it was probably some like song now that I would laugh at. But then I'd never heard of any kind of songs outside of like those hymns or like the, like the little like choruses you would sing, like As the Deer, you know what I'm saying? And I'd never heard, like I didn't even know Christian music like this existed. And I was like, I'm coming here. Like, this is cool. Like, curfew was like midnight, and I was like, I'm all in. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going. And my dad was pretty conservative, and by that I just mean like theologically and methodology, his methodology and just the way that looked. He felt like this school was like too liberal. And by that I mean not in like that they didn't believe in like the virgin birth. That like no one had to wear like suits all the time, or like like this guy's playing a guitar and no one's saying anything about it.
I got you.
But because it like kind of irked him, I was like, oh, I'm for sure coming here.
Okay. So you and your dad had a little bit of it wasn't strained, but you had a little bit of a rebellious spirit, it sounds
For
like.
sure.
What do you feel like what did you learn from your parents, from your dad in particular, about being a parent? What did they pass on that you, positive and negative? One of the things we've learned here in the podcast is that dads make a lot of mistakes. And it seems like when we get older, we're able to forgive them because we realize they didn't mean to make those mistakes. You know, they were doing what they felt like was the right thing to do. Sometimes they didn't know. So what do you think some things your dad did, right or wrong, that have influenced you?
I think, I don't know if it was like, again, military or whatnot, but he was very stern, strict. It was like when he said something, that's what you did. There was no questions about it. And you kind of fall in line, So I think those are things that I look at and go, I didn't want to be like that. But then there are moments in parenting where you get humbled and you realize the man that you said you don't want to be, you realize that's what you are.
Really?
There are things where you're like, I'm not going to be this way. And then you have kids your own, and they have their own thoughts, their own agenda, their own plan, their own sin. Yeah. And you find yourself going like, man, I lost my cool there, or man, I didn't expect to react that way. And I definitely see like that. Like I said, now my dad is, obviously he's a grandfather now, and he's changed. Our relationship has morphed into something different than it was. And I see in him like his heart change, and I see him like wanting to father differently, and how he cares for his grandkids, for my sisters, and I see like that genuine love and care. And I know like if he could go back, like anybody, hindsight's 20/20. You can only do what you can do while you're in it. I think he would change a lot of things and how he was. Like so many times, it didn't matter like if I had 200 teenagers show up, like on a youth, it didn't matter if like 20 of them put their faith and trust in Christ. And I would call them and say, man, Dad, like 20 kids put their faith and trust in Christ. It was kind of like, oh, cool.
So what did you want? What did you want?
I wanted praise. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to know from him that I did a good job. And I remember, because there was a time like after our first son was born, it was like our relationship kind of got strained. It kind of came to a head. And I told my wife, I said, if he wants a relationship with me, he can pursue it, but I'm done. So we didn't talk for a long time. It's easy for me to do that because we move so much that like I think detaching is easy. And I remember I was speaking at a camp in Idaho. He lived in right outside of Boise at that time, outside of Twin Falls. I spoke at a camp out there, and I remember it was just me and my parents. We were sitting down at lunch. They were taking me to the airport. I had been in ministry for several years at this point, and I remember he told me something. He said to me, he just started talking about my life, and as he saw me, and he said, son, I want you to know that I'm proud of you. And they dropped me off, and I'm at the airport, and I'm like jacked up, you know what I mean? Because I was like, I shouldn't be struggling with this, you know what I mean? Like I needed to hear that, I'm like, I'm too old for this. Like
you're a grown man.
I was like, late 20s, and I needed to hear that. So I think for me now, like that's one thing I do with my kids is I tell them, hey, no matter what you do, I don't care how you're gonna screw up. I tell our kids like you're gonna screw up. We will always love you, and we're proud of you, and we try to praise them. And I think that's something. I don't think he tried to keep it away, but he wasn't good at giving it.
Yeah, so I think there's a message there because, at Eagle Rock Boys Ranch when I was there were a lot of kids that felt like their dad didn't like them.
Yeah.
And there's a different, you can feel loved and not liked.
Yeah.
Kids want to be liked by their dads too. They want to know that their dad genuinely thinks that they're cool.
Yeah.
To put it in
man.
teenage words. And if you had to consciously come to a point that you felt like you needed to forgive your dad?
For sure. So I think, I talked about like that time, like, hey, if he wants a relationship, he can pursue it. right? But, now I think just seeing that change in him, I think just in my own heart, it's like, okay, I understand, like, as a person, you only get one shot at doing certain things. You only get one shot to raise your kids, right? Like, they're not going to go through it again. No one wants to go through it again. And I think when you come on the other side of that, you just kind of think, these are things I wish I could change, and maybe, you can only do what you can do. Yeah, he's one of the most godliest men I know. So if I need, like, solid advice, like, I'm calling him, like, hey, help me with this. Help me chew through this. If I want to talk through methodology, I don't talk to him. Okay. We're huge Denver Broncos fans, so we talk, football, and, we'll chat through things like that. We talk about the kids. We'll FaceTime. We want to make sure they have a relationship with them. We're going to see them this summer, Yeah. So we try to spend time with them, and they're more conscious to try to make efforts, because now he travels. He's an evangelist. He travels all across the country, mostly out west. But anytime they're close, he tries to go out of their way to, like, be a part of our kids' lives. And so, like I said, I've just seen that change, and just even, like, I would say maybe like a softness in his heart that wasn't there when I was growing up.
So if he were here, and by the way, he'll probably watch this.
Maybe. I don't think he's on Facebook, but maybe he might.
He might. So what is there something that you would like to say to him? I mean, it's a little easier. I sat here with my dad. I think he sat where you're sitting, actually, and I said some things that I wanted to say to him, and I'm just wondering if there's anything you, in retrospect, looking back, anything that you would like to say to your dad through this medium we have here.
I think I would just tell him, hey, Dad, I love you. I know that you did the best that you can. I know that I was difficult. I know that I made it hard to parent. I probably didn't make it a joy. You probably felt there were times that it made it stressful on you, stressful on, Mom. As you saw me make choices that maybe you hoped were different. I just pray, ultimately, let you see that you did point me to follow after the Lord. I'm following God as best as I can. I want to serve him. I want to be the best husband and father that I can. And I thank you for instilling in me some of these disciplines in my life that I don't think I would have if I had a different life. I think I've been able to adapt in places because of the life that I grew up in. And I'm thankful that God put you in my life.
So how do you think you're doing as a father?
Right now,
tell us about your kids. I mean, everybody doesn't know.
I got 3. My oldest is 12, my middle is 9, and my youngest is 5. Coming into those middle school years is tough. I did student ministry, but always having your own is different, right? With your own kids. I would say I'm right now, I feel like I'm just okay. Like in this season right now. This year I'm focusing, I kind of challenged my church like this, and I was thinking like this, like the fruit of the Spirit, Galatians 5. I want to just focus on one for the entire year. So for me, it's gentleness. There's sometimes I'm doing really well, and there's like seasons where you're like, I wasn't gentle at all. And I'll come in at night. I always pray with my kids every night. My daughter, I pray with her, and then I go to my boys' room, I pray with them, and I'll just tell them like, I was not gentle when I was telling you that, and each of my kids have something they're working on. And
what kind of advice would you have for young dads? You're still a young dad, but I'm telling you, it won't be long before you'll be an old dad like me. They'll be, getting that final diploma. What kind of advice would you have for young guys in your position with kids that are just becoming teenagers?
Mm-hmm. Well, one, I think who you are when no one else is around, character, who you are at home, more than who you are in public, who you are at home. That speaks volumes, because it shows your kids this is the real dad, not the one where everyone's around or where people come over and they're hanging out. who is he when no one else is around? That's, to me, sticks out. Loving your wife, treating her well, showing them this is what it's like to treat a woman. This is what it's like to take care of your mom. We honor her, and them knowing that she comes before them. I put her before them because that relationship has to be strong, right? And obviously, we're talking about God. We know God first.
Right.
You know, for myself anyways, God comes first, and then my wife, and then it's my kids. So I literally, like I said, I've been reading the fruits of the Spirit in Galatians 5, and love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control. If those things are in your life, man, like, those are the things I wish and maybe someone did tell me that, but like to just sit down, like invest, like I coach guys like church planners and guys that are starting out, and we, like all men, like we need a coach in our life, whether it's your father. Some guys are able to have their father be their like coach and can invest in them, but you got to have like those father figures in your life that can invest in you. And I have guys like that.
Yeah.
You know, my father-in-law's like that. I got a couple of guys in my church that I look to that just love me. And they're not afraid to say like hard things to me or like challenge me, and we need that. Like we need people speaking into us, building us up, pointing us, and showing us a better way.
I would encourage any young man to find somebody to help walk through that process, particularly if you did not have the advantage of having a great dad. Anything else that you would like to share about fatherhood in general?
Yeah, I think like you said, I mean, there's only been one perfect father. That's God, right? So we can find ultimate satisfaction and peace in that. Like, like I talked about, like approval and like feeling like I need my dad's approval, but I didn't need my dad's approval. I wanted it really. Like I need God's approval, right? And finding that completeness in Him. So getting that part right in your life, that God void, and then focusing and growing on it, that's most important, you know.
Well said. So we snuck around your back as we've become accustomed to doing here, and I'll tell you this, you know, I watch people who I know, and I kind of see how they're doing as a parent, and I've always appreciated you. You were my children, my kids, Danny and Allie, were in your youth ministry. Yeah. So we failed to mention that. But I appreciate you, and I've watched you as a father from a distance, and I know that you're a great dad. So we did a little something, and we want to show you a little video that we got from your family.
All right, Zay, go ahead.
The thing I like best about my dad is he's super fun.
Okay. Nolly?
The thing I like with my dad is play games.
When he plays games? Okay.
The thing that I like best about my dad is he hangs out with us.
Okay.
He's super fun.
Cool. And is there anything that you'd want to thank Daddy for? So you could just say, Daddy, I'd like to thank you for...
Daddy, I'd like to thank you for always being there for us. Daddy, I'd like to thank you for playing with us.
Mm-hmm. Nolly, is there anything you'd like to thank Daddy for, Nolly?
For taking us to the movies. For taking us to the movies.
Taking you to the movies. Okay. Does anybody have a good story about Dad?
Me.
Oh, you do? Okay. What's the story? Zay, do you have a story to share about Dad? Something fun maybe we've done as a family or something?
We've gone on a lot of trips thanks to Daddy.
Mm-hmm.
Doing a bunch of fun stuff.
Maybe what was your favorite trip that we've taken so far?
Well, I have one.
Okay.
My favorite one was when we went to Texas for the first time. Yeah, when we went to the summer camp. Yeah, the summer camp.
This last summer? What was your favorite thing about that camp, True? When we were there with Dad?
Meeting new friends.
Okay. Zay, what was your favorite thing about the summer camp when we were there with Daddy?
To see Daddy preach up on the stage.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Can y'all tell Daddy, say, we love you, Daddy.
We love you, Daddy.
Big smiles.
Big smiles.
That's the Woodcock children. How does it feel to I mean, you're about halfway through this thing. I mean, the oldest is 12.
Yeah.
You're a little more than halfway.
Yeah.
2/3. How does it feel to know that you're doing it right? That you can tell they appreciate you.
Yeah. I think you get so caught up in the day-to-day things, you know, that at least for me, I know a lot of guys are like this. At least for me, I feel like if you had a bad day or you feel like you failed in one spot, you almost feel like you're a failure in all spots, right? And, you know, you see things like that and you see their joy and you remember, okay, it's not all bad. Like, they're just seasons. In life, there are always seasons. You know, there's 4 seasons to a year. And it's remembering to just be present in the season when it's difficult, to ride it through in those seasons and to constantly remind them that we're here for you, we love you, and then to look back and, you know, and I look forward to the conversations one day with my son, maybe when he has his first, and I'm like, man, remember when you were middle school, you were a punk, you know, but then I you know, hearing from him, maybe the things that he's learned or whatever. I think those things it's good to be reminded of that, for sure.
All right, good deal. That wraps up this episode of the That's My Dad podcast, where we're teaching young fathers to become great dads and trying to break the cycles of generational fatherlessness. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week. See you then.